join the ranks?
So I joined the military my senior year of high school. I had already had my son, and I decided to enlist just to have a better life for me and him. I did my initial contract, did my 8 years, and then decided when my time was up that I wasn't going to re-enlist. I was already married, and I had my daughter, my son, and my 2 stepkids. My husband was getting ready to deploy, so it was just going to be a little bit too difficult for both of us to be in at that time with childcare and everything. I still have a complete military family because now my son's in, my stepson's in, and my husband is actually getting ready to deploy to Afghanistan in May.
I joined the military 2 years after graduating from high school. I spent 1 year in a private college. After that year, I looked at the amount of debt that I had accrued in just 12 months. And I realized that it really would be unsustainable for me. I had spent 8 years with the Air Force Reserve. It was my first and only enlistment, and I enjoyed it. It was one of the best decisions I made in my life.
So I joined the military right after high school, searching for some type of, direction and purpose in life. Wasn't quite ready to go to college at the time. So I joined the military as a communications specialist, fell in love with the Army, realized that it was everything that I was actually looking for from a team perspective, from a camaraderie perspective, from a challenge perspective, it was like another family to me. So I planned on just doing 4 years and take the college money and hopefully at that point utilize the GI Bill to go back to college. And I stayed 20 years, and it's been the best 20 years of my life.
When my contract ended, I was already employed by Verizon, so I was pretty much already set. I had my job here, and it was just pretty much straightforward. I mean, my contract ended and I already had my job. So that was pretty much how it went for me.
Support group that helped with the transitioning process. Julie Pates of the 514 Air Mobility Wing, shout out to her because she was amazing. She spent weeks and weeks working with me, helping my resume, helping me figure out the type of company that I would want to work for. And, thinking about the transition process, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the mentors that I had within and without my squadron. There were so many seasoned, sergeants or my captain who knew of Verizon, knew of the reputation that Verizon had in the veteran community, and kind of just put this company on my radar.
In 2013, when I was transitioning out, I actually was starting to transition out in 2012, and I had a colonel say, hey, why don't you come to one of these career fairs with me? So I had the opportunity to go to a career fair and, met employers, actually met Verizon. That was one of my employers that I met. At that point, it was really early on in my transition. I was about a year out from separation. At the time, they weren't really ready to start making decisions on hiring basically that far out. So I communicated with the recruiter back and forth, and then that basically went kind of silent, realized that it was going to be a lot more difficult. I applied to about 200 jobs, about 50 of them were in Verizon, and I had 0 responses. I mean, I had a bachelor's degree, I had 20 years of technology experience in the Army. I was a combat veteran, led a company of 198 personnel in the telecommunications world. I went to the PX one day and I ran into a Vietnam veteran, and I was known for always, that was a passion of mine. I used to say, thank you for your service to every Vietnam veteran I ran into. That sparked an opportunity to have a conversation with him. he knew someone in Verizon, introduced me to them, and that was basically my first opportunity to be able to conversate with somebody on the other side of the fence, so to speak, which was great because they actually, looked at my resume, but they took the opportunity to give me a chance to basically talk about myself. When I had that opportunity, that opened up more doors, and Verizon decided to take a chance on me and my skill set and bring me into HR. So I started out in HR, and I was in a unique position because I was a guy that had telecommunications background, had zero experience recruiting. I was actually the opposite. I was a drill sergeant at one point in the Army, which is completely different. But the one thing that I had in common was that being a first sergeant in the Army, my job was to take care of soldiers. And as I got into Verizon, I had the ability to be able to identify all the challenges that I had from transition, and basically be a liaison for soldiers again. So I was basically being like a civilian first sergeant, right? So it was a great opportunity for me to be able to give back to the community I came from, and then help service members in their journey navigate into employment opportunities. And then at the same time, I was able to educate Verizon recruiters on the value of military service, the different experiences, and we were able to really start to get the momentum going and helping service members. And coming to Verizon, that it wasn't a fact that Verizon or any company didn't really want to hire, and it wasn't lip service. They didn't know how to hire veterans, and they didn't understand the skill sets. So I think the biggest thing that Verizon did is they invested in me, and they invested in hiring military personnel to help veterans transition. And I think that really helped turn the corner. So, I mean, it's a huge kudos to Verizon on investing in the military recruitment team.